trouble. They think it's a little bailout, but it's just another step deeper into the well of socialization. So they don't see this as a giant leap, but this is the way we will become socialized, by incremental steps. And this is another giant incremental step because they feel like, oh, nothing's going to happen. You know, today we had some hearings on this with the presidents of some of these banks, and they claim that they didn't even want the money and they didn't even need the money. Some begged for it and took it and accepted the fact, but those who didn't want it were coerced into taking it because our government didn't think it would look good if we only gave it to the ones that were failing, and then everybody would have a run on those bad banks. So it's ironic why some of the good banks actually fell into the trap of, okay, we'll join you, you're in charge, so we'll take your money.
Representative Paul, I'm thrilled to finally get to interact with you. I've had literally thousands of emails and comments on SpokeUp.com requesting that you and I have this discussion. And, you know, and I want to start with that. We talked earlier about the American public. They realize that that socialism is not the path we want to go down. They do get economics 101. I truly believe that. Why are we so fringe if we're fighting against the Republican and Democrat regime that is sucking all this power away from us?
Well, we were taught for the past several decades that interventionism was an in-between step. We didn't have to be radical, laissez-faire capitalists, and we didn't have to be socialists, that we could have intervention, have the government smooth things out and subsidize, and have a welfare state to some degree. And even the conservatives, look at what Bush administration did by expanding the government. So we accept this. But if one understands Mises, the great Austrian economist, he says it won't last either. It has to fail. And he predicted, rightly so, that it would move in the direction of fascism, not so much of a communist state or total...
Is this fascism, right? This looks like fascism, especially the last 48 hours of TARP and stimulus.
Yeah, this is what it is, and it makes me ill because even in Geithner yesterday talking about, what we need is a good partnership between business and banks and the government. And that just turns me off to no end to hear people, Paul, good business people.
One of our emailers, Rich, and by the way, you can email us at strategyroom@foxnews.com, has asked me to ask you this, and we were talking about this before we went on air. Talk to us about the erosion of the two-party system. Talk to us about all the Republicans that voted in favor of TARP, all the things that Bush did to the economy in the name of republicanism. Why is it that people that have this big government attitude get into government, whether they call themselves Republicans or Democrats? You and a dozen or so in the House to the contrary are the exception.
Well, it's the way Washington works. As soon as you get here, there's a lot of pressure put on, especially the freshman members, to be team players. If you're not a team player, you don't get what you want. You don't get your goodies for your district. You don't get on the right committee. It starts the very first week, and this is especially bad if the party is in charge. Now, Republicans are a little bit better, when they're out of office. Just think, all the Republicans voted against the package when the Democrats proposed it. But like you indicate, when Bush proposed it, a bunch of the Republicans supported it. And Republican leadership said, oh no, we have to stand behind our president. We have to stand behind our party. And they put party above everything else. And they think they're going to do the country a favor and get reelected. And they just have to neutralize the Democrats to some degree. But it's a sellout.
Be shunted by your colleagues in the House. But have they suddenly gotten their free market moorings, or are they against this just because the occupant of the White House is a Democrat?
I think it's a partisan thing. I don't think that they're really back to the fundamentals. Some of them are, but no, they right now I'm annoyed with them because they want to be better managers. Republicans traditionally over many decades have argued the case, well, the Democrats have the welfare state and they get all the credit, but we're Republicans and we want to get rid of the waste and the fraud and make these programs work. Well, the principle's wrong. This principle of bailout is wrong. That's why I don't even want to be involved in this discussion of telling banks what to do. I want to just take the money from them and make the market work, let the bankruptcies come, let the prices go down. But too many conservatives fall back on this idea, well, it's here, so we have to be better managers. And believe me, you cannot efficiently manage the economy from a central location like Washington. No matter how hard you try, you have to reject the whole principle entirely.
Schiff?
Yeah, Congressman, are you finding anybody, any of your colleagues, anybody coming to you for advice? I mean, I know that, the president is getting together these huge new committees with all these economists. I mean, why don't they just fire everybody with the word economist in their title? And why doesn't he just come to you and say, Ron, what should we do? I mean, you got to be the only guy there that has been active, talking about these problems. In fact, it amazed me to watch Geithner in an interview yesterday saying that we need the government to provide demand. As if, I mean, demand is infinite. What we need is the private sector to create supply. I mean, is there nobody in Congress that knows anything about economics?
Well, on occasion, I do have an individual come and talk to me. I thought I would test it since I've gotten a little bit more national recognition the last year. So I went to the Republican retreat this year just as a curiosity. I haven't been there in many, many years to see if they would ask me a serious question. And I spent the weekend there, and it was cordial and all, but nobody really was interested in saying, hey, what do you think about this? So it doesn't happen.
What about us actually getting out of the two-party political system? I think that we might have actually hit a tipping point with confiscating now trillions of dollars of wealth and just, on a whim, it seems. This economy is heading into this depression. Dow's heading to 5,000 or 6,000. Are the American people going to finally stand up and vote out the Republicans and Democrats?
It's not likely because we're locked in on this two-party system, which is a single-party system, and we have a long way to go. But just think, though, the president that we have today was elected by less than 30% of the people because a lot of people don't register and a lot of people don't turn out and a lot of people voted against the president. But things are marching on. Just for instance, tomorrow we have a major piece of legislation that has gotten very little attention, and it has to do with public land management. They are going to deliver more than 2 million acres to the federal government, another $9 billion. That used to be a big deal. Now we're talking about hundreds of billions of dollars and trillions of dollars the Fed is involved with. But in the old days, another $9 billion to put more land into the federal coffers. They already own a third of the country. So that movement is going in a very strict direction, in the wrong way. In this bill, of course, in the bailout bill, they're taking over more control of medical care. But you say, well, the Republicans need to stand up against it. But what did the Republicans do? Prescription drug program. And what they do in education? Double the size of the Department of Education. So it's a horror.
Jake in Pennsylvania asks us to talk with you a little bit about the constitutionality of all this, something that I have written on and the congressman has talked about and we've all talked about. The first thing that anybody does who works for the government, whether they're the president or a janitor, whether they're the governor or a school teacher, whether they're the mayor or a cop, is to take an oath to the Constitution. Not only to the Constitution, but to the Constitution faithfully as it's written. Does anybody seriously discuss the constitutionality of this? Does anybody seriously consider that the government does not have the power under the Constitution to do this?
No, because we've had generation after generation, they've been taught that the Constitution, to interpret it, you have to be flexible, it has to be adaptable, it has to be modernized, it doesn't have to be amended. This is what they're taught. So believe me, nobody has any guilt. They take these oaths of office and then the very next minute they're doing something in total defiance of the Constitution. So it's a shame. What we need is another generation of young people realizing the significance of the rule of law.
We